everybody, Mrs. Bianchi. We're looking at question 4 from the L37. The histogram shows the number of points the Green Machine scored in its basketball games last year. Which value could be the median of the data set? And they give us some choices. Now, the reason that people get confused on histograms is because we don't really know the exact values. We can only speculate what's the low end of the values and what's the high end of the values. So the fact that we have three that fall in this little chunk of data, we don't know if those three numbers are 40, 40, and 40, or they might be 54, 54, 54, or it might be like a 40, a 54, and then a 42. We just don't know because the data, this histogram does not reveal the particulars on these data points. It's only giving us a range. So to help you understand, and this isn't necessarily how I recommend that you do these types of questions, is just to help wrap our brains around this. We first have to know how many data points there are. So in the previous, when we did number 3, we wrote the numbers down. We did the 3, the 7, the 10. So we're going to have to do that as well for this one. So 3, this is 7, this is 10, this is 3, and this would be 2. And we have to add all these numbers together. So this plus this is 10. 10 plus 10 would be 20. And then 20 plus the 5 would be 25. So we have a total of 25 data points. Always a good idea to write that down. So again, where do we get that from? It's the sum of these numbers that I have here in green. Now, whenever we're talking about the median, we're talking about the number that's in the middle when we order the values from least to greatest. So we need to find the midpoint. And how do we find the midpoint? We divide 25 divided by 2. So a lot of people already know what that is. They don't have to take out a calculator to figure that out. But if you didn't, you would do 25 divided by 2. And what would you get? You would get 12 and 5/10 as the midpoint. So I'm going to label that as the midpoint of the data. So that's not the same thing as the median. That's just the middle part of the data. Now, to help you understand this idea of midpoint, what I've done here is I've analyzed each of these bars, and I thought, well, what if these three numbers all happen to have been on the low end and they were all 40? And I put the 340s down just to help us understand this idea of median. And then I said to myself, well, what if all 7 of these values were on the low end and they were all 55s? And I wrote down 7 of the 55s. What if all 10 of these values was on the low end and they were all 70s? And I wrote down 10 of the 70s. And I kept going with that idea. So 3 of the 85s, you can see it here, and 2 of the hundreds. Now, I also thought, so this is kind of my low thinking. I also thought about, what about my high thinking? So the high end of this is 54. So it is possible that all 3 of these values could all be 54s, and I wrote them down. And I did the same thing with this bar. So I took all the high numbers, I wrote all 7 of them down, 10 of the 84s, wrote all that down, wrote 3 of the 99s right here, and 2 of the 114s. Now, if we had to find the median of this data set right here, and we know that there's 25 data points. And oh, by the way, it's always a good idea to count the data points that you have whenever you're writing them out to make sure that you didn't forget one. And if we divide this by 2, it's going to be 12.5. So the strategy here is, let's count. We're going to use this whole number because whenever you have a 0.5 going on or a 5/10, that means there will be that one number in the middle, which might actually make this a little bit easier. So let's count from the low end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And let's count from the high end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have that one number in the middle, which is right here. That's the median if we consider all these numbers potentially being on the low end. Now, what if it's on the high end? So let's do the same thing. So again, we're taking all the high numbers here and analyzing it that way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on the low end. And let's come in from the high end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So on the high end, the value would be an 84. Now, here's the next thing we need to think about. Is it just sheer coincidence that we have this be a 70, which matches this number right here, and this be an 84, which happens to be this number right here? Is that coincidence? So let's examine another aspect of this, because again, what I'm saying is that you don't necessarily have to write all this out, because we're just writing it out to help your brains process this. So what should you be doing? Instead of writing it out like you see here, what the recommendation is ask yourself, if we're 12.5 in, then you kind of want to add the numbers and find the bar that would be 12.5. So just to help you understand that, if I added this plus this, right, that would be 20 of these three numbers. So that means that the 12, just this would be 10. So that means to get to that 12.5, you're into this bar. So 3 plus 7 plus, half of this data, right, would have to get you to the 12.5. Now, likewise here, if you added on this end, this plus this would be 5. In fact, let's write that above it so that we can see it. This would be 5, and then I'll go back and write the 10. So 10 plus some number is going to get you to this bar, right? So as long as you're not past that bar, by, if we added, let's say we added this number and it wasn't 12.5, but it was like, 11 or something, then we'd have to consider the next bar. If we do 5 and then say to ourselves, how much more do I need to get to 12.5? We would be, kind of splitting this bar in half, right? So some of it would go on this side and some of it would go on this side. So what I'm trying to say here is that you can just use the histogram and ask yourself, where would we be if we were at 12.5? And the answer would be, we'd be in this bar. So you can just say to yourself, well, that means that the median has to be a number that's between 70 and 84. And so hopefully you look at the values here that are offered. What value here is one that's a value that's between 70 and 84? Now, I do want to just throw out one more thing just to make sure you understand. When you're looking at a histogram, you're not ever going to be able to specify exactly what the median is. You're only going to be able to get the range of what the median could be using the strategy. You're only going to get the range of the median. So in that case, what is the range? It's falling within this bar right here only. All right, hopefully putting it this way helped you understand the idea of median. But again, just want to say one more time, on your piece of paper, it's not always going to be necessary to write this out. But if it helps you, then of course you would do it. You're going to use the histogram itself. So we're looking at the range of the median.